My name is Alara, and for most of my life, I believed that love was a synonym for sacrifice. I thought it meant shrinking yourself to make room for others, quieting your own joys so another's pain could be heard more clearly. I learned this lesson in the sterile, whispering corridors of a hospital, in the shadow of a glass incubator where my sister, Maya, fought for her first breaths. She arrived in the world 2 months ahead of schedule, a tiny, fragile thing, her skin the color of a twilight sky. For 3 years, St. Jude's Children's Hospital was our second home. Its scent of antiseptic and floor polish is woven into the fabric of my earliest memories, a chemical counterpoint to the sweet, milky smell of my baby sister. My parents, consumed by a terror so profound it reshaped them, became tireless guardians of her flame. They orbited her, their lives dictated by the rhythmic beeping of monitors and the hushed consultations of doctors. I understood, of course. I was 5 when she was born, old enough to grasp the gravity in my parents' voices, to see the fear in their eyes. Maya was my sister. I loved her with a fierce, protective instinct that felt as natural as breathing. When my parents asked me to miss a friend's birthday party to sit with her, to give up my Saturday mornings to watch her while they caught a few precious hours of sleep, I did it without complaint. It was our family's great project, keeping Maya safe. Her fragility was the sun around which our small solar system revolved. But then, the universe shifted. Maya grew stronger. The tubes and wires fell away, one by one, like shedding a chrysalis. The doctors began to use words like remarkable recovery and normal life expectancy. By the time she was in elementary school, she was, for all intents and purposes, a healthy child. She could run in the park until her cheeks were flushed, climb the jungle gym with the other kids, and eat ice cream without a feeding tube. The crisis had passed. The war was won. Except for Maya, the terms of engagement had been too beneficial to abandon. She had learned a fundamental, powerful truth. Her suffering was currency. It bought her attention, sympathy, and a limitless supply of material wants. The family's orbit had been established, and she had no intention of letting us all spin off into our own trajectories. It began subtly. A headache would blossom behind her eyes the moment a math worksheet was placed in front of her. My mother, still conditioned by years of high alert, would sweep the books away. "Don't you worry about that, my sweet girl," she'd murmur, her voice thick with concern, replacing the textbook with a bowl of her favorite mint chocolate chip ice cream and the remote control. My father, a man of quiet, sturdy practicality, would adjust the lighting and fluff her pillows, his brow furrowed with a familiar worry. By the time I was 16 and Maya was 11, she had honed her craft into a devastating art form. The true cruelty of it, the part that etched itself into my soul like acid, was its timing. Her pain was a phantom that haunted only my moments of light. When I scored the winning goal to get the Northwood High girls soccer team into the state semifinals, a wave of debilitating cramps sent her to the ground. My parents, who had been cheering from the bleachers, had to leave my victory celebration to rush her to the clinic. Later that night, the doctor called to say they could find nothing wrong, likely just a bit of indigestion. As my father relayed the news, I saw Maya, curled up on the sofa under a plush blanket, give me a tiny, triumphant smirk over the rim of her hot chocolate mug. When the thick acceptance envelope from the University of Washington arrived, my parents planned a celebration dinner at Trattoria di Mare, a lovely little Italian place downtown overlooking the water. As the family raised their glasses for a toast, Maya slid from her chair in a silent, dramatic faint. The night that should have been filled with laughter and plans for my future was instead spent in the cold, sterile waiting room of Harborview Medical. Again, the verdict was the same: nothing. Dehydration, perhaps. Stress. As we drove home in the pre-dawn quiet, she stirred in the back seat. "I'm so sorry, Alara," she whispered, her voice a perfect imitation of fragile remorse. "I ruined your night." The words were right, but the look in her eyes in the rearview mirror was not. I tried to tell my parents. I cornered them in the kitchen one evening, my heart pounding with a mixture of anger and desperation. I showed them the journal I'd found where Maya practiced writing her name with her non-dominant hand, claiming her right hand was too pained by carpal tunnel to do her homework. But Maya had already laid the groundwork. She had tearfully confessed to them that she knew she was a burden, and that my jealousy over the care she required was making me act out, to say cruel, untrue things. They looked at me not with understanding, but with a deep, weary disappointment. "Alara, she's been through so much," my mother said, her voice gentle but firm. "Please, try to have a little more compassion." The final break came in the form of Liam. He was kind and steady, with a slow smile and eyes the color of the sea on a calm day. He saw me not as Maya's sister, but as Alara. He listened to my dreams of becoming an architect. He came to my art shows. He held my hand as we walked along the misty shores of Puget Sound. He was my anchor in a world that felt increasingly unstable. We dated for 8 wonderful, solid months. And then Maya, with the precision of a surgeon, excised him from my life. The breakup happened at the Daily Grind, our favorite coffee shop, the air thick with the scent of roasting beans and steamed milk. Rain streamed down the large picture windows, blurring the world outside. Liam didn't meet my eyes. He slid his phone across the worn wooden table. On the screen were messages, supposedly from me, sent from a fake social media account she'd created in my name. They were filled with a venom I didn't possess, calling Maya a leech, a liar, a faker who should have just stayed sick. "I can't be with someone who is this cruel, Alara," he said, his voice hollow. "My own brother has a chronic illness. I know what that's like. To speak about your own sister this way. I just don't understand." No amount of pleading or denial could break through the wall of disgust in his eyes. He had seen the evidence. The next day, Maya sent me a photo. She was wearing the vintage REM t-shirt I had spent weeks searching for to give Liam for his birthday. She was smiling, a sweet, innocent smile. The caption was a single word: oops. That was the day something inside me fractured. Or perhaps it was the day something new began to form in its place, something harder, clearer, and far more resolute. For years, I had been a passive observer of her destruction. Now, I would become a student of it. I began to watch her, not with the pained confusion of a sister, but with the detached focus of a scientist studying a specimen. I documented everything, and in the cold, hard data of my observations, a pattern emerged, as clear and predictable as a tide chart. Her pain, no matter its supposed origin, headache, kidney stone, stomach virus, always manifested on her right side. She would always call for Mom first, her voice a pitch-perfect blend of fragility and panic. Dad was the second call, the logistics man. When asked to rate her pain, the number was invariably an 8 or a 9, never a less alarming 7, never a too dramatic 10. And the recovery was always miraculously swift, taking place over 2 to 3 hours, just long enough to derail a celebration, scuttle a date, or cast a pall over an achievement. Once I saw the blueprint, I knew how to dismantle the machine. My opportunity arrived last Sunday, at our monthly family dinner, a tradition held at my Grandma Rose's warm, rambling house in Queen, and a home that always smelled of baking bread and old books. The entire clan was there, nearly 20 of us crammed around the massive mahogany dining table that had witnessed generations of our family's history. The room was loud and joyful, filled with the overlapping stories of uncles, aunts, and cousins. 20 minutes before my grandmother called us to the table, I excused myself, claiming I needed to retrieve a sweater from my car. Instead, I went to the quiet upstairs guest room, the air still and smelling faintly of lavender potpourri. I took out my phone, my hand surprisingly steady, and started recording a video. "My name is Alara," I said, my voice even and low, speaking directly to the camera lens. "It is 6:40 p.m. on Sunday evening. In approximately 20 minutes, at dinner, I am going to announce that I have received a major promotion at my architecture firm. It is a lie. There is no promotion. I am doing this because I need to predict, for the record, what will happen next. I took a breath, the words I had rehearsed in my mind for weeks feeling strange and heavy on my tongue. When I make my announcement, my sister, Maya, will wait for the initial congratulations to subside. Then, she will begin her performance. She will place her hand on her right side. She will moan softly at first, as if trying to hide it. She will call for our mother. When asked, she will rate her pain as an 8 or a 9. She will say she needs to lie down, and within a few minutes, the suggestion of a hospital visit will be made. This is her pattern. This is her script. I stopped the recording and slipped the phone into my pocket, its weight a cold, hard promise. Back at the dinner table, the air was thick with the aroma of my grandmother's famous rosemary garlic roast chicken. Laughter echoed off the high ceilings. I waited for a lull in the conversation, then picked up my water glass and gently tapped it with a butter knife. The cheerful din subsided, and curious faces turned toward me. I have some exciting news, I began, my voice clear and bright, a perfect echo of the joy I was supposed to be feeling. I found out on Friday that I've been promoted. I'm now a senior project lead at Viridian Dynamics. I embellished, inventing a significant raise and a new office with a view of the Sound. The reaction was immediate and wonderful. The table erupted in applause. My Uncle Ben gave me a hearty pat on the back, while my cousins crowded around to hug me. My mother's eyes, to my surprise and sorrow, welled with genuine tears of pride. "Oh, Ilara, that's incredible," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "We are so proud of you." I smiled, I thanked them, I accepted their congratulations, but my gaze was fixed on the far end of the table, where Maya sat. For a fleeting second, she looked genuinely happy for me. But I knew her too well. I watched, with the detached precision I had cultivated, as the subtle shift occurred. It was a flicker in her eyes, a minute tightening of her jaw. She saw the room, saw the attention, the unadulterated joy directed entirely at me, and the old, familiar mechanism whirred to life. She set her fork down with a soft clink against the china. My Aunt Carol, sitting beside her, leaned in. "Everything okay, sweetie?" Maya gave a small, brave shake of her head. "I'm fine," she murmured, just loud enough for those nearby to hear. Just a little twinge. And so it began. The overture to an opera I had seen too many times. I kept up my part of the conversation, laughing at my uncle's joke about how I could finally afford a place that wasn't the size of a shoebox, but a part of my mind was a silent metronome, counting the beats. She shifted in her seat, a subtle arch in her back, her left hand coming up to press against her right side. A low groan, almost lost in the chatter, but perfectly pitched to snag the ear of the person closest to her. My cousin, Mark, paused in his story about his new puppy. "You all right, Maya?" The concern was a spark, and her next words were the tinder. It's a pain here," she said, her voice breathy. "On my right side. It's getting a little sharp." I watched the social dynamics of the room pivot in real time. Conversations near her end of the table began to quiet. Heads turned. My promotion, the bright, shining star of the evening, began to dim, its light absorbed by the nascent black hole of Maya's newest ailment. My mother, who had been laughing with my grandmother, froze mid-laugh. The smile vanished from her face, replaced by the familiar mask of maternal anxiety that Maya could summon with a single word. "Maya, honey? What's wrong?" Mom was already pushing her chair back, her napkin falling unheeded to the floor. Maya's eyes, wide and pained, found our mother's. Never our fathers first. Always Mom's. It was part of the script. "Mom, it really hurts," she whispered, her voice trembling with practiced vulnerability. My father, ever the pragmatist, switched into triage mode. "What kind of pain? A cramp? A sharp pain?" It's a deepfake, she said, closing her eyes as if struggling to find the words. It's getting worse. Grandma Rose made a small sign of the cross. Uncle Ben's brow furrowed. The collective attention of the room had now completed its migration from my success to her suffering. My achievement was a forgotten appetizer, cleared away to make room for the main course of family drama. On a scale of 1 to 10, my father asked, his hand already reaching for the car keys on the sideboard. The question was a family catechism. Maya paused, a masterful touch of feigned deliberation. An immediate answer would sound rehearsed. It's an 8, she finally breathed. Maybe a 9 now. Of course, 8 or 9. The magic numbers. The numbers that meant business. The numbers that required action. The room was now abuzz with worried speculation. Aunt Carol mentioned her gallbladder attack. My grandmother murmured about how the poor girl had suffered so much ever since she was a baby. My promotion was an echo, a ghost of a conversation that had happened a lifetime ago, all of 5 minutes past. Maya hunched over a little more, her performance escalating. Mom, I think I need to lie down, she whimpered. And then she did it. In the midst of her pain tableau, when she thought no one was looking but me, her eyes met mine across the long table. And for a fraction of a second, she smiled. It was a ghost of a smile, fleeting and smug, the victor's acknowledgement to the vanquished. We should get her to Harborview, my mother said, her voice tight with panic. Then, can you drive? My hands are shaking. That was it. The snap. But it wasn't a hot, angry break. It was a cold, quiet shearing of the final thread that held me to the old ways. As the family started to rise, a flurry of motion and worried murmurs, I stood up too. But I didn't reach for my coat. I reached for my phone. Wait, I said. My voice was calm, cutting through the noise with unexpected authority. Before we all rush off, there's something you all need to see. Maya froze. Her hand was still pressed to her side, her face still contorted in pain, but a new emotion flickered in her eyes, confusion, and a dawning hint of fear. Alara, not now, she said, her voice still in its sick-roll whisper. I'm in real pain. I know, I replied, unlocking my phone. I know exactly what kind of pain you're in. And I know precisely when it's going to go away. My Aunt Carol looked at me, bewildered. Alara, what on earth are you talking about? I held up the phone, my thumb hovering over the play button. I recorded this video 20 minutes ago in the guest room upstairs. Please, just watch. Maya went utterly still. The actress had forgotten her lines, caught by a stagehand, stepping out from the wings. What video? My father asked, his voice wary. I looked straight at Maya, and I saw the moment she knew. It wasn't comprehension, not yet, but the primal animal instinct that the hunter was no longer the hunter, but the hunted. A video that will explain everything, I said, and pressed play. My own recorded voice filled the sudden, heavy silence of the room. It is 6:40 p.m. In approximately 20 minutes, at dinner, I am going to announce that I have received a major promotion. I am doing this because I need to predict what will happen next. She will place her hand on her right side. She will moan softly. She will call for our mother. When asked, she will rate her pain as an 8 or a 9. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the steady tick-tock of the grandfather clock in the hall. Every eye in the room, shocked, confused, dawningly horrified, was on Maya. She was a statue, her hand still glued to her side, her face a mask of disbelief. My recorded voice continued, relentless and clear. She always manifests on her right side, always calls for mom first, always an 8 or a 9, and she always recovers in 2 to 3 hours, just enough time to ruin whatever good news I might have. Grandma Rose was the first to speak, her voice a fragile whisper. Maya, is this true? Maya's composure shattered. I don't know what she's talking about, she stammered, trying to retreat into the character of the victim. I'm hurting. Why won't any of you believe me? Because the evidence is rather compelling, I said, my voice quiet. And that was just the introduction. I swiped on my phone screen, pulling up a new file. Let's move on to the supporting material. Remember when Liam broke up with me? Because he thought I was a monster for the things I'd said about my poor, sick sister. Maya's face went chalk white. Alara, don't, she pleaded, her voice no longer a whisper, but a sharp, panicked command. These are the original messages, I said, turning the phone so my parents could see. I had paid a friend who worked in cybersecurity to help me recover the data from her cloud backups. She created a fake profile using my photos. She spent weeks building a false narrative, sending Liam messages filled with the most hateful things, all carefully crafted to sound like me. My father took the phone, his hands trembling slightly as he scrolled. My mother leaned over his shoulder, her hand flying to her mouth as she read. Her face crumpled. And there's more, I said, my heart a cold, heavy stone in my chest. This is an audio file. It's Maya on the phone with her friend, Amber, last month. I had my phone set to record in the living room. I pressed play. Maya's voice, bubbly and carefree, filled the room. Honestly, Amber, it's so easy. You just have to know which buttons to press. Mom panics if I say it's a sharp pain on the right, but Dad responds faster to breathing trouble. It's the perfect system. And it works best when Alara's having a good day. It just takes the shine off, you know? It brings everything back to me. It's kind of fun to watch her face fall. The silence that followed was a living thing, thick and suffocating. My family stared at Maya, their expressions shifting from concern to confusion, and finally, to a slow dawning, horrified understanding. Maya finally broke. The performance was over. The stage was bare. Fine, she shrieked, tears of pure rage and humiliation streaming down her face. Yes, sometimes I faked it. Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted? She glared at me, her face blotchy and red. You have no idea what it's like. To be you. To be Alara. Alara, the gifted one. Alara, the soccer star. Alara, the brilliant artist. Do you have any idea what it's like to grow up as nothing but the shadow you cast? So you decided to burn down my life to feel some warmth? I asked, my voice shaking with the grief of 15 years. You sabotaged my friendships. You destroyed the best relationship I ever had. You turned our family against me and made them think I was a callous monster. Because you had everything, she screamed back, shoving her chair back so hard it scraped loudly against the wood floor. You always had everything. I had to be sick for anyone to even see me. But you weren't sick, Maya, my father said, his voice low and heavy with a sorrow that seemed to age him in an instant. You were lying. You were hurting your sister, deliberately, for years. My mother was openly weeping now, quiet, shuddering sobs. All those nights in the ER, she whispered. All the fear, the canceled plans, the money. It was all a game. It was my life, I said, the words tasting like ash. My life that you used as your playground. I looked around at the faces of my family, at the wreckage of our shared history laid bare on the table between the cooling dishes of food. Now you know. Now you all finally see. I picked up my purse and my coat and walked toward the front door. Behind me, Maya's sobs devolved into ragged, animal wails of pure despair. It was the sound of a world collapsing. Alara, where are you going? My mother cried out, her voice broken. I paused at the door but didn't turn around. I'm going to find out who I am when I'm not playing a part in her story, I said. I'm going to build a life on solid ground. A life where my joy doesn't require someone else's permission. I stepped out into the cool, damp night air. The scent of rain and wet earth filled my lungs, and for the first time in as long as I could remember, it felt like I could finally, truly breathe. The sound of my sister's pain followed me out into the darkness, but it was different this time. It wasn't a chain pulling me back. It was the sound of a lock, rusted shut for years, finally breaking open. Truth, I've learned, is not always a gentle thing. Sometimes it arrives like a storm, tearing down everything you thought was stable and safe. But it's only after the storm has passed that you can see the sky clearly again and begin to build something new, something stronger, something true on the cleared ground. And that night, walking away from the ruins, I felt the first faint rays of a new dawn.